can you start to see now why certain priests and parishioners are actually starting to talk about rectifying religion with sex? We cannot step away from the actual benefits of doing things that it doesn't even have to be about pleasure. It can be about health. That we are willing to step away from those and put people's lives in danger, and instead of allowing them or enabling them to do things that do have way more benefits than harm when done consensually, safely, and without children being present or involved. I don't understand why it's public enemy number one. We can point to venereal diseases and things like AIDS all we want to, and yes, they are an issue, but this is another topic that needs discussing, such as mandatory STD screenings that need to just become a part of our natural everyday examinations, starting maybe at age 17 and going on up. Because your right to infect people with a disease, whether you know it or not, ends at the moment you put yourself or any bodily fluids into another person. In other words, you don't have the right to do that. That's abhorrent. And I know that there are some who are going to counter this series by simply saying, yeah, but venereal diseases and people are running rampant and everybody's having sex with everybody and it's disgusting. This is the perversion that's led to things like the rise in pedophilia, which if you've seen my series, which again, I've got to spend this weekend porting over my playlist for that, you'll understand how absolutely ignorant that view is, at least in terms of the pedophilia issue there. But no, the ills that we are seeing have less to do with people being much more open and honest about sex and sexuality and what turns them on, what turns them off, what they're willing to do, what they're not willing to do, and how far they're willing to go. It has nothing to do with this sexual openness. It has more to do, much like with pedophilia reports and things of this nature, to do with the media that sensationalizes these stories, that jumps on the backs of them because it's socially acceptable to ridicule sex, especially in the media, because that's what gets ratings. People don't want to hear that it's okay to maybe want to do it doggy style, that people have been doing it for ages in countries that aren't currently being afflicted by the wrath of God. And it's hard to really respond to that without, really stretching the truth or inventing a new factor to reality to explain all of this away, when it would be just so much more simpler to be open and honest, where if we had better things like sexual education in our schools that don't just say, birds do it, bees do it, you don't do it, and don't even begin to try to talk about condoms, safe sex, or maybe even show kids, or at least, pardon off the girls and show them what it's like to give live birth. Maybe even get a teen pregnancy on tape, not showing the genitals, just saying, we don't have to be disgusting about this. And just show how much fun it is to be pregnant for those who feel that, we'll use the pull-out method, we'll use the rhythm method, we'll use our ignorance to justify us as teenagers being sexual beings with each other and making mistakes that could have easily been prevented. Not to mention the fact that we're not even willing to put onto the table the idea that women and girls be on mandatory birth control until at least age 25. I think we would see a huge drop in teen pregnancy rates, and we would see much more of a benefit from, and not have to have as much of a headache of having to deal with girls who, instead of being 16 and carefree, being 16 and pregnant. But again, I'm trying to stick to the article here, so let's go to it. Number 5, makes you look younger. Making love 3 times a week can make your body 10 years younger, claims a Scottish researcher. It's good for you to have sex, says David Weeks, a clinical neuropsychologist at the Royal Edinburgh Hospital, whose study on the effects of sex and aging appear in his book Secrets of the Super Young. Now, I can't exactly substantiate that one. What I know of anti-aging is that they found when they added young blood to old rats, from young rats who had compatible blood types, obviously, they found that cells could rejuvenate. They found that our blood, more than anything else, is what helps to start aging our body and starts breaking down. And suddenly illnesses get more serious because we're a lot more frail and weaker. And anyways, the main fountain of youth that we can confirm, although ethically that raises many questions, is an infusion of young blood into old bodies can rejuvenate those bodies like never before. But again, there's at least a researcher behind this. Whether this checks out in the end, it's hard to say, but I'm still putting it in here. Healthy heart. Sex helps you burn calories, but it can also improve your heart. Sex will take care of stroke and heart attacks. You just have to enjoy the moment. Scientists with New England Research Institute examined the effects of sex on the heart. The study concluded that men are 45% less likely to experience cardiovascular disease, but the study fails to study the effects of sex on a woman's heart. Isn't that surprising? Said nobody ever. See, one of the criticisms one can levy against using science in this fashion is that it has inherent flaws, and you're correct. Usually with peer review as well as with multitude and longitudinal studies, we can combat this, but it's never going to be perfect. And with many social ills I've talked about, often women are overlooked. Now, without trying to get too personal, my lady, her heart isn't exactly the best. That's all I'm going to say, and I may have already said too much. Sorry, honey, if I have. And so I have to be careful. I really have to be careful. That doesn't mean that we can't enjoy each other. It just means that I have to have the presence of mind as well as be an upstanding enough person to know when too much is too much for my partner. And it's like those Viagra commercials talk about. Some people just don't have the heart or lose the ability to have the heart to have that sex or any sex, which is too bad. But with regular maintenance, your body, there's little or no reason why your body shouldn't be able to perform long until your old age, at times when people would say ew at the very thought that you kiss your partner, let alone that you guys bump uglies. Pain relief, and this is one that's again substantiated in the documentary link down in the underbar. Pleasure is the measure of the to beat out the pain. Do you experience migraines and body pain? Well, sex is the answer. But if you experience back pain, it is best to consult a doctor, and I agree. Dr. George E. Ehrlich, an arthritis specialist, for those of you who have arthritis, you might want to listen up, from Philadelphia, conducted a study on the link between arthritis and sex. He narrows down that patients who engaged in sex experienced less pain, which again is substantiated by other studies that are in the documentary down in the underbar. Last one, and one that's important, especially when we're talking about polyamory. Builds trust and intimacy. The act of sex spikes the hormones oxytocin. This hormone is responsible for your happiness and love. If you feel your relationship is falling out, there is trust or you're worried that your partner will still stray, then sex will dispel these doubts. The hormone oxytocin, builds trust and brings couples closer together. And Cupid too. See, people look at things like polyamory and they say, you're governed by lust. You can't possibly love upwards of two people on the same level that you love the first person you were with. To which I say, baloney. No, I'm sorry. That's the important distinction between somebody who's just a playa and somebody who's actually polyamorous. Polyamorous have to learn the difference between lust and love, a lot of which tends to go down to, I like this person enough that I might want to sleep with them. But if I have sex with them, am I going to care if they want to cuddle afterward? Am I going to care if they want to talk to me afterward? Am I even going to be able to feign interest, or am I actually going to be interested in what they have to say? In other words, is this something that I could build a relationship on, or is it just sex? Typically, if it's just sex, you usually move on because it's just you being lustful. It's you not wanting to build intimacy or trust or things with this person, in which case you're just fooling around. And I don't necessarily say that there's anything wrong with just fooling around if you have the type of partner with which that is clearly defined and okay with. But that's typically not polyamory. Typically, polyamory is about having trusting, loving relationships with more than one partner. And I think this is the hardest thing for a lot of people to understand about polyamory. It is not simply cheating with permission. There's so much more that goes into it. You're building typically a relationship. It's not just a series of booty calls.